I grew up with a number of health issues, one of which was that I had severe asthma, and I lived in Southern California with many family members in Los Angeles. And I remember seeing the smog on the horizon of Los Angeles as we would drive in. Eventually I came to a place where I realized a lot of the problems were not to do with individuals or personal choices, but really were issues to do with how it is that we've structured society, where we choose to build our buildings, who has access to things like clean air and clean water. And that really motivated me to start to look harder at how is it that environmental problems, which oftentimes cause health problems, are really tied to issues of social inequality. Hi, I'm Trent Greiner, and I study the intersections of sustainability and environmental justice. We can look at more local levels, like in the United States, and see how histories of ideological and cultural bias lead to the enforcement and the creation of policies that disadvantage some populations, really for the benefit of other populations. In the 1930s, after FDR was elected to office, the United States was in a moment where equity was a concern to the majority of the population. In order to address that issue, FDR took a number of actions. We talk about this as the New Deal. Part of that was establishing what's called now the Homeowners Loan Corporation. The Homeowners Loan Corporation started to take surveys of cities and try to determine which parts of cities were the best lending bets, or which parts of the cities had the greatest environmental risks, like exposure to hazards or to pollution, and which parts of the city had the populations that weren't valued as much by policymakers at the time. This has a sort of inertia to it that maintains both processes of segregation and also processes of more intensive pollution patterns within historically redlined and yellow-lined communities in the US. An example of this is the Boyle Heights community in Los Angeles, California. Today, it's exposed to some of the highest air pollution rates in the country. Part of this is because of the East Los Angeles interchange, which is one of the busiest freeway segments in the world. The Boyle Heights community has had 100% of freeway proposals that take place within its bounds approved and carried out. Whereas the greater Los Angeles County area, particularly those communities that were favored by the redlining process, we call those green-lined or blue-lined communities, have only had about 60% of highway construction projects approved. We can also look at places like Nashville, for instance. A lot of the environmental hazards that are sprinkled across the Nashville landscape tend to find themselves located in historically redlined spaces. And today what we see is that every single one of Nashville's toxic release inventory facilities is located in a historically redlined space. The implications of this is that these communities are exposed to elevated environmental risks. They oftentimes have elevated asthma rates, elevated cancer rates, and lower life expectancies. One of the fundamental questions when it comes to environmental sustainability is how we manage to live our lives in a way that facilitates the growth of well-being for people that are here today. There's a lot of social inequalities that need to be taken care of now that require resources that oftentimes are associated with increasing pollution. And just like redlining locked us into sets of social relationships that disadvantage particular communities over others, we have to make sure that we're making good policy choices that don't, in the long run, end up undermining future generations' ability to take care of the pressing social issues and environmental concerns that they are likely to be confronted with given the problem of climate change.